Hi, I'm Corey. Welcome to Creating with Scraps. This video is a little overdue and I apologize for that, but I wanted to kind of do a wrap-up, catch-up type of a video. And one of the questions I received a couple times on my last video was, why the sudden interest in lace? Why are you doing the little bits of lace and blah, blah, blah? Well, I've wanted to do it for quite some time, but there's no sudden interest for me with lace. I've been using lace since I've been doing this. For example, this is a lace cover of the Scrapbusters book that I did, oh gosh, a couple years ago now. And you can see almost every page in the book has lace in some way, shape, or form on it. Not all of them, but most of them use little bits of lace here and there. And I've got a mini that I did a while ago using Tim Holtz paper that uses, both doily and lace in several different ways. Pockets and tucks and tags and behind the things and all of that. And even this journal, I don't know if I've shared this one or not, it's got a lace belt, and I've got some other lace belts that I had shown how to make a while ago. And even inside here, there's lots and lots of ways to use lace with scrapbook paper and kits and such. So it's not new and it's not sudden. I just wanted to kind of do a culmination, which isn't even actually accurate because there's so many ideas that I wouldn't be able to cover. But that was my goal, is to corral ideas using little bits of lace. And on that note, I finished Junk Journal January, even though it's a little bit early, because I've had some downtime. And so I thought I'd go through that and show you what I've gotten here with the little bits of lace. And at the same time, I had challenged myself to use my scrap lace bin and my bin of work in progress scraps that I hadn't sorted into my regular scrap bins. And I was able to eliminate that. And this is all that's left of my little itty bitty scrap lace bin, which is fabulous, because now I kind of like give myself permission to pull out some of the other laces that I've got and use those. And on that note, somebody had also asked how I store lace, and I store lace several different ways. I have an entire shelf. If you look at my scrap room tour, I have an entire shelf of old vintage spools, kind of like this, and I store lace on those. And then I have some sewing thread spools that are hung up on the wall in a rack that I made using knitting needles, and I store lace that way. And I also store lace like this. These are the leftover pieces from the lace that I got last summer. So there's not one good way to store lace. Just do what works for you, or like me, a variety of things that work. So there's that. All right, here is my completed little bits of lace. And I don't know if you remember, but one of the things that I'd shared was using a lace insert as an accordion book spine. And I had this tucked into the journal in the back. Well, the journal, is typical of mine, got really fat, and so I pulled this out because it made it too chubby. And now I'm thinking of sewing a pocket right here and just tucking it in, because the spine of this book is rather fat. And so I'm thinking of just doing that, and that way it'll sit here like this. Okay, anyway, I'll go through these days quickly and share, focusing on let's see, do I have the prompts? Well, the Junk Journal January prompts are here, and I've shared some of the days. So day 1 was resolutions, and I put goals and the lace pocket. Day 2 was quote, and I used a quote here and a lace on a paper clip. Day 3 was a throwback, and I used kind of the satin stitch idea. And day 4 was day 4 was a tuck spot. Day 3 was throwback, day 4 was tuck spot, and I showed how I made the lace pocket. Day 5 was a memory log, and I showed how I used lace paper, paper that had been coffee or tea dyed, using lace to create a pattern on it. And then day 6 was memory, and I used a lace tab. 7 was stitched, and I showed how I stitched lace on to edge a pocket and how it was on to make a journaling card. And day 8 was neutral, and then lots of different ways. The background of a bit of lace here, and then lace on an edge, and then lace on an edge again. 9 was foliage, and I used an applique, a piece of an applique, and again, some lace there. And 10 was 9 was foliage, 10 was layered. Oh, and I took just little scraps of lace and I layered them on top of each other to kind of create a lace background. Those are all just little scraps laid on top of each other and sewn, layered. And then 11 was eclectic, and I think that's where I left off. And some might say that this isn't truly eclectic, but it kind of is, because there's a variety of things. This is dry embossed, using a lacy pattern, and then I took a piece of vintage lace and wrapped it around this window film transparency. And I know the sheen is bad there, sorry. This is just a dried flower on a label. And then this, it's a little bulkier than I'd normally put in towards a spine, but I put a bulb pin with a bead on it just to kind of tie that down. But this lace piece is tied all the way around. And so it was just kind of a combination of features, so I'm calling that eclectic. Day 12 was torn edges, and then I just used a variety of torn edges with lace here, so lace and paper and some lace background cluster type thing. 13 was garden, and what I did is I used some Tracy Fox slide mounts and some dried flowers that I had from last summer. And then I just, before I put the label on, I just sewed a little bit of scrap lace in the corner just to give it a little bit more festive look. And that's always a nice way to use bits of lace. Let's see, sorry, I'm losing garden. 14 is pattern. And this one, I don't know how well you can see it, but these are buttons. But this is, here we go. It's a pattern on my sewing machine. Gail Augustinelli and I have the same sewing machine, and she told me about this pattern. And it's one of the stitches on the machine, and it's really cool. And so what I did is I used that stitch, and then I cut out tiny little bits of lace. Not sure how well that shows up. Tiny little bits of lace where those leaf holes would be. And I put little itty bitty bits of lace in there, and then I edged it with lace, and then lace over here on the edge, and then buttons up on top of it and such. But I thought that was kind of a fun way to do a pattern. 15 is opposites, and what I did with opposites is I did smooth and textured. So this cardstock is ultra smooth, and then the corrugated board, the peeled up corrugated board is textured. And then this lace is one of the thicker laces, and it's really textured. And the birdie, I used Seth Apter Vintage Beeswax embossing powder, and it's got that raised bumpily thing. So my opposites are smooth and rough, the different textures. And again, just a little Tim Holtz pin with a little tiny bit of lace is another way I often use scrap lace. 16 was flow. And what I did here is, oh, I'll have to put that down. I did a lift up kind of flowing waterfall, because waterfalls make me think flow. And this is a waterfall set of pages with journaling spots underneath it. So each of these lift up with places to write, and then just different kinds of lace at the edge of each as lift up tabs. 17 was whimsical, and so this is a completely different feel. This is Stamperia's Atelier d'Art. I did a booklet a while ago on it, and I had some leftover pieces. Still one of my all-time favorite scrapbooking kits or sets that I've seen. But here, this the images have some string tied on it, and I just used a bit of lace to tie on in place of that string, and then a brad here just to create a little bit of dimension. And then there's a bit of lace behind here to make the color palette stand out. So another way to use little bits of lace on that with whimsical. 18 is borders, and this is just ruffled paper. Maybe it's not ruffled, maybe that's not the right word, maybe it's pleated. I honestly don't know the difference, so I apologize. I've got tatted lace on the edge of this, and then lace on the edge of the journaling card. But this is just ruffled up digital paper that I sewed on and edged with lace to make a border. 19 was interactive, and so this is a double interactive. This is just a cluster with lace, which is a way I often use little bits of lace, and it lifts up and over, and then there's a journaling spot tag underneath it with, again, lace and some fabric there. So that's interactive. And then the back side is part of the same thing. It's also interactive. And I used a bit of lace to make a closure for this interactive bit. And then there's just some T cards or vocabulary cards. And then I used a flat piece of lace, a larger flat piece of lace, as the inside of this fold over little envelope thing. Just thought that was kind of a fun way to use a larger bit of lace. And when I say little bits of lace, that don't all have to be teeny tiny. It's just, little pieces that aren't necessarily on yardage, or, maybe you're salvaging them from a piece of clothing, or I don't know, something like that, or a tablecloth or a runner or something. And so sometimes you get some bigger bits, but what I meant by little bits of lace is just, pieces that aren't necessarily purchased as yardage, kind of a thing. All right, page 20 was nature. And again, I really enjoy making dried flowers into window type things with transparency. So that's what this is. And what I did is I just wrapped a little bit of lace. I had my label on here. I wrapped a little bit of lace around the top there just to create interest both front and back. So it goes both sides, front and back, and just thought that was kind of another fun way to use a little bit of lace. Peeking out. So this one, there's a card peeking out the top. So this is almost a full page pocket, a little bit of tatting here because I just had a scrap of that tatting. And so the journaling card is here, and then I use some bigger tatting and a piece of ribbon and a piece of sari silk to make the tag on top. So the tag is peeking out and peeking over. And then there's lace back there as well. 22 is bookshelf. And I originally was going to put the books that I'm currently reading or currently just read, but then I realized I've got library cards. And I thought that would be a kind of a fun way to tie in bookshelf. So this is an old library card from a card catalog. And then the journaling card on this one is the idea with the lace I wanted to share. So you can see here, I just had a little smidge of lace left over, and then I glued it down onto a piece of cardstock, and then I punched it so that I could make a tab reinforcer with that lace. So you can see here that lace is, I punched it into a tab reinforcer, just kind of a different look. So I saved that to show how I did that. And that library card was just a belly band. So that's bookshelf 22. 23 is texture. And this lace is just kind of the coolest texture. It looks like it's hand spun or handmade lace, but maybe I'm wrong. It's definitely old. And when you touch it on the page, it's got this really cool texture. So I went with that for 23 on texture. And this is an old, I want to say 1830s or 40s book. And this is the cover page inside of it. It's a bit of that. And so it was way too fragile to use by itself, but I glued it down onto a piece of cardstock. So you can still get that cool feel. I mean, it's made of more cotton than pages are now, I suppose, but it's got a really cool feel and texture to it. 24 was fabric, and I had some yo-yos that I got last summer, and some of them were just itty-bitty pieces, and there's your smaller yo-yos. And so I put lace behind to make it stand out, and then that's just a tuck spot, but the yo-yo is my fabric. 25 was ombre, and that's, to me, it's shades of, I didn't do a traditional ombre, but it's shades of the same thing. So I put coffee dyed tracing paper and then some handmade paper here to create the ombre look. But the lace bit on this one is again with another, this one's using a plain card and some dried flower, but the lace makes hinges. This is just a different kind of hinge. So I punched holes with the badge hole punch, and then I put strips of lace through it so that it could flip back and forth, and the lace, because it's so thin, acts as a hinge and it doesn't really add any bulk. So that was 25 ombre. 26 translucent. And as opposed to transparent, translucent means you can see mostly through it. And what I did here is I took some of the flat lace and a piece of vellum, and I made a full page. I put the big piece of lace in here, and I made a full page. And I just put a little tab on there, and I didn't put anything on top of it because I wanted the beauty of the lace to show through. And you can still write on top of this because it's just vellum, but it made a whole lace page. lyrics. And I just took a piece of sheet music and made a window in the sheet music and Singing in the Rain, because I live in the Pacific Northwest and we get a lot of rain. And then I used some lace bits. These are just little tiny offcuts to make a border edge here, and then another little piece of the lace to go inside the window. Grungy. Here's another, this is a weed, I believe, another transparency film thing that I had done with a little bit of lace in there. And then there's a lace background, and then I've got a lace edge on this one and a lace top. I combined a piece of fine doily lace with sari silk to create that top. So that's grungy. 29 was geometric, and this is probably a stretch for geometric, but this is something I'd wanted to do. These are just little bits of lace, leftover bits. There's some tatting and just some different kinds of lace, and then a lace border here. And I thought that made a really cool page border. And so we're going to call those geometric, because rectangles, these are all rectangles and those are shapes. So that's 29 geometric. 30 travel. This is some thinner pieces of lace, and rather than weaving them like I did on that card that I shared last time, I kind of like those boards that we made back in the 80s and 90s where you put lace and then you tucked cards and such in it. Well, that's this idea. So I took a piece of card and I laid lace out, not all touching each other, but so that you could tuck things in. And then I just didn't want to tuck anything in, so I sewed it down. And then the travel are some tickets, travel tickets, Kansas Coach Line travel tickets. So there's travel 30, and then 31 is reflect. So think back. And this one, that's why I used another bit from the Atelier des Arts from Stamperia, and I took a glassine envelope and I took another bit of that flat lace and I just sewed it down to the top of the flap. So the whole rest of the glassine envelope is clear and you could tuck something in there, but I just put the lace on the flap of the envelope. So that was another way to use lace. And that is all of Junk Journal January. So I finished that, and I finished it early simply because I was on a roll and I was having fun with it, and I have ideas for other things that I want to get done. So I wanted to, well, here, I'll put that there. I wanted to get that done. Now I had extra pages, so I did include some things in addition to it, but not a lot, because as you can see, I ran out of room. So this is again lace paper that was created with lace, and I got, somebody sent me this in a Happy Meal, but I know that there are Etsy shops where people use lace or things like this, thicker tablecloth that I've got here, and then they put it on their copy paper when they're doing their coffee dyeing, and you get that kind of pattern. So that's another way to use lace. This one is just one of those, it's a side tuck here with a journal card and then layers of lace and fabric combined. But the way what I did here is I cut out little bits of the lace. Like this is, the back side is just a lace insert or doily that was on a piece of lace, and then this was tatting that was on something else. And I just used that as a tie to, to tie some string, to use it as the end. So if you sew in your signatures in a more traditional way and you've got the strings, you could use some bits of lace there. Here I used a vintage panel of lace to make a top corner tuck, and then I used lace to sew together to make a little notepad. And then again, there's some little bits of lace on the top on the paper clip. So those are the lace ideas there. And here, I used another little cut out of a piece of lace on top of the lace, and then edged and then combined paper and lace and fabric and just a combination of things, so you get a variety of different textures, and then you can focus on, if you've got some really pretty lace that you want to showcase, there's a way to do it. This one I made just a lace frame, and again, it's one of those bits of lace that you might find on a wedding dress kind of a thing. And made a window and put, these are Libra Designs by Susan on Etsy, makes these die cuts, and then I just stamp and emboss them. But I made a window frame using that lace, and that's how it's utilized there. And here it was made into an envelope, and then that envelope technique that I used, that I cut off the sides, cut off 2 of the flaps to make additional flaps. And that's what this is. This is just, there's a journaling card in here, and I think the journaling card, if I remember correctly, yeah, the journaling card is a lace encased journaling card. So that is a piece of lace underneath there, even though it's not really easy to see on the film because of I used coffee dyed tracing paper here. So it's a little bit darker, but that's made as a journaling card. And then I just put lace on the flaps only of the envelope. And then this idea is just lace on top of one of these common little pockets, that fold over pockets that we make. And here is lace on top, and then I put transparency film on to hold the whole thing in place. So there's that. And then here is just kind of like a fabric flip, but it's a lace flip. And then these are just some flatter laces sewn all together and into a pocket, to tuck in and take out and to cut off and use as you choose. So like a lace fabric flip. And then here, a lace bottom pocket. And that's another one of those yo-yos. There were some orphan yo-yo pieces that had fallen off, and I utilized those. So I combined a couple kind of lace and made a pocket. And on this one, what I did is I put it on a piece of parchment paper, because sometimes when you've got lace like this that's really fine and you want to take things in and out of the lace, it catches on the edges of the lace. And so if I put vellum or tracing paper or something behind the lace, then I find that it catches a little bit less. And then the bird I'd already shared. So that is my Junk Journal January and my Little Bits of Lace idea book. That was a lot of fun. Now that's not all the ideas for lace that I had, but that's all that I could fit in this book. And again, I challenged myself to use up the bins of my scraps and the lace. And so that's what I'm going to share next. One of the ways I did that is to make strips. So I used parchment paper. This is unbleached parchment paper or baking paper, and I cut strips, 1-inch strips of that, and glued a bunch of them together. And then I just started laying down roughly 1-inch square bits of lace, little tiny pieces of lace that I had. And you can see it's super random and just made long strip of lace. And to use, I can cut off little sections, I can make a border with it. You can use it lots of different ways, but that was kind of a really fun way to use lace. Now this is one of those tablecloths type things. Actually, I think it was a dresser scarf. And then I just cut it in 1-inch strips so that I can use these as I choose to make lace squares, kind of like clusters basically, but with just little bits of lace. And that's what these are. These are a type of a cluster, and I have a 10 ways to make clusters kind of a video, and one of the things is these type of pieces. This is that strip that I just showed you, but I cut it in half so that it's, because when I sewed this in, I sewed 3 strips. Or I sewed 3 times on each strip to hold the lace in place. And here it's just cut in half, so it can be used on edges. But these are just like little lace nothings that I can put a button on later if I want to, or put a flower or a tag or something on. But this is another great way to use up little bits and scraps of lace and or fabric. You just make these little nothings. So there's that. And I've got, instead of having a full bin of scraps, I have a full bin of makes. And I'll go through this really quickly because there's a whole bunch in here, and I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. I'm going to try to zoom out just a little bit. There we go. To show you some of the things that I did. Now, most of these are completed, but they're not all completed, because this is one of the things that Gail Augustinelli did. And I love making these. They're strips of paper, and you get pockets. She tucks a tag in, and I tuck a variety of things in. So you get, a little side pocket here, and a pocket here to tuck a tag in, or a little, concertina fold. And there's 4 of those with 4 pockets. And you can use any size that you want. So here's one with just some lace sewn on the edge. Here's one with some lace on the top. And the reason I haven't filled these yet is I don't know what journals they'll go in. And so I want to make sure that whatever I put in it is appropriate for that journal. So that's a great way to use scrap lace as well as scrap paper. And here what I did for the center one, and I made this into a belly band, I just put a whole panel of lace on one of them. So instead of putting it at the top or the bottom or the side, I just made one panel of the lace. And then this one, that's those strips that that I showed you that I cut in half. I just bordered this whole thing. So maybe I would make this into a journal cover. And then I could have all kinds of little tickets like vocabulary cards or cigarette cards or tags or journaling spots, or like I said, the concertina folds, all of those kinds of things can go into this. So I might make that one into a cover. All right, and so this is just, it can be made into a journaling card, it can be made into a cluster. It's just the idea of sewing the panel of lace onto something sturdier. And here it is encased in vellum. There's two different kinds, so you can see there. Rather than having it be a full page, it's part of the page, I could just sew this into a signature, and then you could use that as a writing space or what have you. Here it is again, like I showed you in my book, and this is super thin, fine lace, and it's underneath coffee-dyed tracing paper. And then here's some of those lace pockets that I showed you. Here's the lace woven card, where I took strips of lace that's the same on both edges, and then wove it together to make a journaling card. And then again, here is another version of the coffee-dyed tracing paper with lace underneath it. And this is a great way to use, like if you've got lace that's stained or something, because it doesn't show nearly as much in that. And then you can do it with white, like here it is with white vellum. So you can use it either way. And then again, that's one of the pockets. Here, that's the inside of a journal. So when I make my journals, I tend to do my cover as one piece and then the inside insert as one piece, because I like to sew into the spine and then I put it into the cover. And so here they are as lace panels on the inside of a cover. Here it is just tied onto the top, and here just a little bit of scrap lace on the cover as kind of a mini type of a cluster. Now this is also my word for the year, rediscover, because I went through a bin, a huge bin of Tim Holtz ephemera pieces. He's got the paper and the bigger pieces, and he's got the little itty bitties, but he's got big ones, and I hadn't been utilizing it. So well here, this is another one. This is one of those Tim Holtz cards or such, and I just backed it with some coffee-dyed paper, and I'm trying really hard to use some of those things, so I'm rediscovering new ways to use them, still while combining it with lace. And same idea here. This is one of the Tim Holtz tags that comes in his tags kit, and just a little bit of lace there. And here, little bits of lace, and then a lace underneath the cluster, and this is more of those dried flowers. And this entire pocket, that's a Tim Holtz piece, lace just on the edge of the journaling card, and lace scraps underneath there, and a piece of window film or transparency sewn on top of it. These were inspired 100%, I've got a couple of them, by Gibbet Neary. A year or two ago, she made this really cool thing, and I was lucky enough to purchase one from her. Now she used coffee-dyed, not coffee-dyed, let's try that again, Corey, seam binding. So she used seam binding, and these are a flower press. So let's say you're out collecting specimens or something and you find something you really like. These are plain cards that she used. And then she used seam binding to make a spine. And then there's a little bit of paper in here. So you find a flower or a specimen and you put it in here and you press it. And then it's got some chipboard in the middle, and you fold it closed and you wrap it around and you leave it in there for, I don't know, whatever the magic number of days is. And then it's pressed and it's preserved and blah, blah, blah. And you can use it in your journals. I usually put them under transparency, and she just puts them straight in. But that's a coffee press. And when I was rediscovering things, I found a whole bunch of these Tim Holtz photos that I had because they're incredible, but I never ever used. And so I thought, how can I use these? And that's what I did. I used some lace here, and instead of using seam binding, I used the lace to make the hinge on these. So I used the Tim Holtz cards, and then I put chipboard in between, and then these are the Tim Holtz cards. And then I used some of the parchment paper to put in there to hold the flower so it doesn't stain the papers, right? So you put your flower in there, and there's a bit of that lace as the closure, or the hinge, I should say. And then here is the lace as the closure. Now, when I was making this, and it works just fine, you can see this one's a scalloped edge and this is a straight edge. I find that it works just a little bit easier if you use a lace that's straight on both sides, but you certainly don't have to. You probably want a thinner lace. But then again, maybe you don't. But it holds it really flat, so it's got a lower profile. And I did that one with the rounded edges, and then I used some of the same idea, and I used a different piece of lace for this. You see the top and the bottom are both flat, or straight edged, and same idea, but the squared cards. And I just found some cute photos, some of the Tim Holtz photos, and I used some of the paper, Tim Holtz paper backdrops, I think is what I used on the inside there. And so yeah, I've got a couple different sizes, and this one's the same idea, so just a little bit bigger, and this is a schoolhouse, the photos. So those were a lot of fun to make. Here, these are some old ephemera that I hadn't been using, and I thought it went really well with this. Again, I was just determined to clean out that work in progress scrap bin, and it really made me revisit some of my old pieces. You know, I made a bead journal eons ago for a swap, and I had some leftover bits, so I put them in there. Here, it's just along the bottom. Again, it's one of those fold up, fold down. I've got lace on the edge here. I've got a little bit of lace here on this edge, and then I just put a notepad on front with just a sticker. So another way to use lace. Here is, again, with the revisiting. These are Tim Holtz pieces, and I put it in a little journaling card. Lace is a tag top. Lace is a side bit, lace is a pull, and again, these are Tim Holtz pieces, so I was really pleased that I had rediscovered those. I know some people use them all the time, but I don't. And here is a window frame without any transparency, so this is just a single panel of some lace, and then it's just a little notepad, a little flip-up notepad, but I just made a simple window frame and put the lace behind it there. Come back in a little bit, I guess. Here, lace on a cluster on top of a pocket, and then again, that's a found Tim Holtz piece. Lace, like a linen handkerchief, because a lot of times those are edged with lace, and sometimes they're torn or stained, but you can utilize the embroidery bits to make a journal card. And here, the only lace on this is, it's a journal card with transparency and window film. I rediscovered some of the Tim Holtz pieces, but rather than just have the little bit of lace underneath here, I used a bit of leftover fabric, and I put the lace on top just to give it a little bit more soft look. And a journal card, lace doesn't have to be actual fabric lace. This is a lace, heart-shaped, not a doily. Are those doilies? Maybe they're doilies. I think that's what they are. Anyway, just to make a simple journal card, and I just wrapped that lace bit around it. Here, again, with sari silk on top and just a little notepad. Here is a corner piece, again, with a journaling card and, 2 pieces. Here, the lace is the entire background. I know these are tough to see with the window film, but the entire background is a piece of lace, and then I put the daffodils on top of it for my daffodil journal. Here are a couple of those windows. I probably should have sorted these into categories. These are some fussy cut flowers, but I've just made more of the windows, and then rather than putting a window film here, these are just like journal cards or tuck spots or pockets, or they could even be the front of a journal cover, I suppose, but just around the window frame. Top tuck. Here, I put it on a tag, and then I put a belly band on the tag, so the entire tag is just a little bit of lace, and then I tucked in a ticket and a little flower, just because. Here is a border. This goes in something, and I don't remember what it goes in, but I'll put it to the side. Here is a journal card with some mostly lace, and then I kind of sealed it on one edge with some cardstock, and then one of those Libra Designs by Susan's Flowers. Here, the entire back panel. So this is, they'll go together. So this is a negative space of a die, but rather than backing it with paper, I just backed it with lace. And I thought that kind of gave a really cool effect, and then I could always, you know, put it on here or something for a tag or a tuck or what have you. And here is doily with a journaling space in the back, again, just on a neutral monotone. I really like doing that. Here is double. Here's lace on the edge of a corner tuck, and then here is partial lace. Like, it wasn't big enough for the whole journal card, so I combined the lace with newsprint and put it underneath a piece of transparency to make, you know, a little notepad. Lace on the edge of a journal card or a bookmark. Lace on the edge. Oh, this is a flip. So you would put this in here with note paper underneath, and you lift it up, and then there's note paper that you can't see, and then I just kind of ruffled the lace. And lace here is a collage lace. I mean, you don't need to see all of them, I'm sure. But here, lace just on a part of it. So this is a notepad on the top, but on the bottom, there's just lace, a bit of torn lace on part of it, underneath it, to kind of offset it and make it stand out a little bit with texture. This was an idea from a card holder, you know, from a hotel. And so for our anniversary, we went away, and this room key came in this little card, and I thought, well, gosh, I can make one of those with putting lace in it. So there's a lace flip, and instead of folding it up in the corner, I folded it over on the edge. So that was a transition, but here it is, just like it was in the booklet, but lace is a panel here, and then lace on the edge there. So that was that way to use it. Just a little bit of lace down the edge here underneath some dried dandelions into a journal card. Here, same thing. Here, same idea, some pockets. Lace under the pocket. Lace here. This is a doily, and this is lace at the edge, kind of combining the two. Journal card. This is one that Gail made. It's kind of like a double-sided pocket, right? But then this tag comes out and makes another pocket. And see Gail Augustinelli's videos. She shows how to make these. And it was really kind of fun, but there was lots of ways to use lace on that. And so that's what I did. I've got it here and here and here and here. And lace up here for a journaling card. And for a corner, I did two that were kind of feminine just because they were leftover pieces in there. And here I just put lace over the edge of a pocket and a bit of tatting over on this corner, and then this was just a journal card. I only had a little bit of this paper left. I think it was one of Tracy's digital kits. I only had a little bit left, and I didn't want to waste it, so I put it on top of something else. And you can see back here, the back is open because I only had a small bit of that fabric left. But once I put it in a book, it won't show. And then the same idea here and here. Just that's one of those little nothings with just a button sewn on the top. This is another way to use some lace. Now, I've had these for a while. I shared a video, I don't know, even maybe 2 years ago, on ways to use lace as journal closures, right? And I did something along the same lines. Here was a bigger piece of lace, and the beauty, the limit with this was your journal has to be a certain size to make it work. But what I did here was I used a piece of sari silk and some larger eyelets or grommets, and so I can make this as wide as it needs to be to wrap around a journal. And that is just some sewn lace panel. And this one is the same idea, but just all kinds of little scraps of lace. I sewed it on a piece of canvas. So this would obviously be for a smaller book because I like making small journals. And then I would wrap this around, and then however tight it needs to be to close it up, I just have a piece of sari silk in there. So it's adjustable, which is kind of nice. Whereas these are more fixed. And again, this one, just all kinds of scraps. It's for a smaller journal on a piece of canvas. You can make it, you have a lot more wiggle room on how big you can make it. This is the same thing with 2 eyelets and with just some of the white panel lace. Just a tiny bit of lace on some dry embossing. See, so it doesn't even have to be a lot of lace. It can just be a tiny little bit. And I think they're all pretty much the same idea. You can see lots and lots and lots of ways to use little bits of lace. Oh, here's one. I didn't have that one out. This is a Gale fold down. Now I know somebody else probably did it too, but I saw Gale do it, so it's a Gale fold down in my book. And it's got a corner at the top like this, right? Well, what I did is I took a triangle piece of lace and I just sewed it on to that one section. So just kind of made it a little bit more decorative at the top. And here it is. Here it doesn't even go all the way up to the edge. And then I put a piece of digital on the back side to hold it in place. And same idea here, just a little bit of lace there. So I don't think there's anything else in here that shows anything different. Oh, here we go. This is just a simple concertina, and instead of having a piece of paper wrapped around the bottom, I just used a little tiny bit of thin lace, and I can store it that way. Okay, so there are my ideas with little bits of lace. Now I'm going to continue as I have ideas. I'll continue to make and share them, but that's what I've got done so far. And I'm going to throw these back in here. Pardon me. Throw these back in here and show you what's next. Okay, so that is Rediscovered. That is my offering for little bits of lace. If you have any questions about how any of it was made, please feel free to ask. I think most of it is pretty self-explanatory, but if it's not, just let me know. And I'm going to move that out of the way. And I'll show you what's up next. Because one of the reasons I got that done is because I had some ideas of other things that I wanted to do. One of the things that my favorite ways to use these are just strips, the scrap strips. I cut them into 1/2 inch wide pieces, and then I just layer them up on a piece of card or a piece of coffee dyed paper or what have you. And you can do flip over cards, open up sideways cards, journaling cards, just tons and tons of ways to use them. And then when I know what I want to use it for or what it's going to go into, I'll add clusters. I could put this onto the top when I know how it's going to be used, that kind of a thing. So I like having a lot of these just ready to go. I can add things later on. And then these pieces were ones that I had made using scrap, a little notebook. And then again, same idea. I'll add a cluster when I know how it's going to be used. So I like to keep clusters on hand. Obviously, that one's way too big. I like to keep a lot of clusters on hand so that I can use them as needed and such. And that is my other way of using little bits of lace, and that's probably the most predominant. Now there's probably, 100 or so in here, and these are all scrap cluster bases. Obviously I had a lot of black left over, so I use what I have. There is a little bit of yo-yo, but every single one of these, and there are a ton, I'll put butterflies or birds or flowers, Tracy labels, other images, Tim Holtz people, you can put anything you want on these, but these clusters are essentially ready for me to decorate based on what kind and size and color I need. So that is probably my predominant way. And the reason I actually started saving those little scraps of lace in the first place is because I really enjoy making these, just sitting and putting little bits of scrap paper together. So that's what that is. Okay. Next is, I've got several other projects that I want to do. Recently, I watched a video, an older video, when the YouTube recommendations, it was a Susie Hines Shabby Soul video that she made like 4 years ago. ish, 4 years-ish ago. And it was all about lace and how the different ways she made lace pages. And it's absolutely gorgeous. And so I'm going to challenge myself to do that book. But it's not going to be next. My next project is going to be this. And this was inspired by Margaret at Seven Plaza and my beloved friend Tracy. So Margaret has a desk. Last year, I made a desktop calendar that sat on my desk on this using one of Tracy's kits, and then it flipped over each month and it had little side tucks. And so it was to remind me to bless other people as much as I could. And it sat on here. Well, I hadn't made a calendar for this year yet, and I was wondering what I wanted to do. And Margaret has a desktop flip over calendar, and she does something different on each of the pages. And maybe it's not a calendar, maybe it's just a journal, and she flips it over and does a different project on each page. And I thought, well, how cool is that? And one of her pages was a grid journal. So I asked Tracy, hey, Tracy, can you make grid paper? Because I don't have access to the books like Margaret used. And so Tracy made these amazing grids, and so they're on her group. Tracy Fox Creative, Love Junk Journals. She has these awesome, awesome grids. And so what I thought I would do is make a flip top piece to replace that with a grid, using the grids. And the collage items will be in the little squares. So I'll put a ticket in one, a postage stamp in one, a scrap in one, a piece of lace in one, a tracing paper in one. So I'll put one of those in each of the little squares, and then I'll make something with it in the larger grids. And I thought I would use a book. I've got this old cool book cover as the base, right? So I'll use this as the base. And then Rediscovering, finding things, I've got these Tim Holtz base boards. They're thicker than regular cardstock, but they're not nearly as thick as, say, a chipboard. And there's so many beautiful patterns and colors. So I thought I could use these as the base pages and build that. So that's something I really want to get working on soon because I'm excited about it. And I'm going to do with this something along the lines of what I did with my Rolodex. Now, I made this between 20 and 25 years ago when I was scrapbooking. And it was a reminder to myself to use different things, different techniques in my scrapbooks. Sewing words, using ink, add buttons, add bling, use wood pieces, felt, paint, charms, tabs, I mean, a whole thing, shaped brads, tags, make fun edges, photo turns, fabric. See, there you go, there's a doily, and that one's an old, not a doily, a yo-yo, and that's an old one, photo corners, all the things, right? And so this is just what I would do when I was starting a page is I'd flip and think, oh, okay, so I'm going to mix and match in this one, or okay, I'm going to use polka dots here, or okay, I'm going to add textured bits, or use staples. You know, that was before the Tim Holtz stapler. That's how far back this goes. Journal on a mat, and that goes back a ways. Hang something. Bottom line is so that I remind myself to make my pages all a little bit different. And that same thing holds true in junk journaling. There are so many supplies, and as I've been looking through things, I'm reminding myself, oh gosh, I really haven't used stamping in a while, or gosh, I haven't used stencil paste, or my stencils, or blah, blah, blah. And so that's what I want to do with the grid. It's going to be kind of my reminder to utilize the supplies that I've got in different ways. Part of my whole rediscover thing, ribbons and trim. And so anyway, that's what I'm going to carry this concept over to that. So those are one of the projects I'm going to do. And the other thing I really want to do, when I was making the bits with scraps, I made this piece. I thought I would make it as a journaling card. And then as I looked at it, I thought, well, you know, it's really more like a cover than a journaling card. And again, it was a little bit of lace there and there. And I reminded myself that I had really wanted to make another journal like I did last year, the Wildflower Journal. And I had used file folders with that. And it was just a little bit of a different system. So, for example, this would be the back cover, right? And I've got it here somewhere. I know I have all the pieces. Well, I thought I had all the pieces. Dang, now that I moved it. And then there's an insert. I bet I put it in that bin. Darn it. Well, I'll show it to you when I finish this. So back cover, right? So that nothing is on here essentially. And then I put my insert with the pages sewn in on the inside. And then to make it sturdier, thicker, what have you, these are the covers basically, right? So I've got my insert in and then I put this over one edge because it's a file folder, and then I put this over the other side, okay? And so the insert's in with the pages in it, and then you put these pieces on and you attach them to the back, right? The back of the spine, kind of like this. So you have a tuck here essentially. And then this piece, this spine piece, you can just cover with another piece of paper. See, so I've got the black edges top and bottom, another piece of paper, and then I've got this as a tuck if I want to. I just glue here, here, and here, and then I can tuck something in here. So, like I said, I'd done this with a wildflower journal, and I wanted to make another one, and I hadn't done it. So I thought, gosh, I've got these pieces out, I've got it already started, so I'm going to make that journal. And yeah, that'll be a combination of, well, a variety of pieces. Here's some of the, this is Stamperia Alice in Wonderland pieces, just because the colors worked. And this is Tim Holtz baseboards, just again because the colors worked. And so that's something I'll be working on. Don't know when it'll be done, but that's something I'm going to be doing. And finally, I think it's finally, I had those yo-yos that I found. And what I did was I challenged myself, because I took apart the ones that were orphans, and then I wanted to sew the others onto a canvas background, because I really loved Mass Make March last year. Loved it. But I have so much done ephemera now that I've got 4 bins, 3.5, 4 bins full. And in order to do Mass Make March, I have to empty those bins. So February will be filler up February. And if I'm going to fill her up, I've got to have journals. So I took these yo-yos and I made them into journal covers. And I did it two kind of different ways. I put them on canvas. Here, because these yo-yos were really old and a lot of them had separated in some spots, I sewed kind of a grid pattern, top and bottom. And I did it that way. This was the first one that I did. And I sewed both edges and both edges. So making a square on a round yo-yo, basically. And then, I don't know if you can see the inside. You can see how that grid is. So that'll be a journal cover. And then I'm going to put those in there. These are going to be some pages. These are some of those lace bits, doilies and handkerchiefs and such. And a dresser scarf, I think, that are going to go in there. And that's chipboard for that. And then I did it a little bit differently. I went, rather than going top, bottom, side, side, I just went through the centers. And I think I like that a little bit better. I don't know if you can see there. It's still kind of a crosshatch pattern, but it just goes through the centers. And so there's a journal cover there. And then there's a smaller journal cover. I just used the pieces that I had. And I had this one, I came across it, so I made this into a journal cover. And then this one will be a larger journal cover. And on this one, I may do something like fold it over and then fold this over and have a button type closure or something. I may do something along those lines. And then this, pardon me, this was a crocheted piece. And I can't crochet worth a darn. My friend Gay McLean is the most amazing. She did my floof and my hariku. She is the most amazing crocheter. But when I injured my leg, I crocheted, and that's as far as I got. So I thought I'd turn that into a journal cover. And then here, same thing. This was a little older and a different era. I just sewed it onto a piece of burlap type fabric just because I thought it stood out more. Pardon me, talk too much. And finally, last but not least, okay, so this one was one I was going to do. This was supposed to be the inside, again, using lace. But when I started putting it together, I realized that it worked better. Let's see, which one is it? It worked better. Well, heck, where did I put it? It worked better as the outside. Is it this one? This one. I don't know. This one, I think it is. No, that's the larger one. Well, heck, where did I put it? I know it's in here somewhere. Oh, it's this one underneath. Okay, so this one will be the inside. So instead of having the yo-yos on the outside, the yo-yos are going to be on the inside of this one, because I thought it was kind of cool. So when you open it up, you get yo-yos. And it worked well with, this will be the outside. And then these were some corners that I had bought at like a quarter. There were 4 of them. And so I sewed these down to make pockets around the edge there. And then I'll put chipboard in to make a firmer cover. And then I sewed on, I had this double wide strip. I thought that'll make a really cool journal cover. So when I'm done, there'll be yo-yos on the inside, and it'll close around like this, and it'll close like this with a button. Now, there's a lot of extra room in here right now because, oh, it's upside down, because I make journals really fat. So by the time it's all said and done, it'll fill it up. But I thought that might be kind of a fun closure too. And then again, there's lace or doily, what have you. All right, I think that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for all your kind comments. Again, if you've got any questions about how I did something or wanted me to show you something, please let me know and I'll be happy to take care of it and share with you. Thank you all. Happy creating.